leadership move is build tension, not stress. Now, the distinction might be lost on several people, but the idea of stress is that I know I'm not where I'm supposed to be, I know it's important, and I don't know what to do about it. That's the kind of situation that creates stress. Tension is something very, very different. In the same time, we're not where we're supposed to be, but we understand the problem. We can do something about it, and it puts us in an empowered position. Now, to model this, we use a model used by Robert Fritz, and that's the rubber band between current reality, where are we, and the ideal state, where do we want to be? Now, when we have stress in most organizations, as opposed to tension, there's easy ways to relieve that tension. First, we can lower our vision. We don't have to be that good. I worked with one organization that had an entire benchmarking group whose entire purpose was to prove that their results were acceptable by taking other people's results and putting special factors on it. Their whole purpose in life was to prove that we really didn't have to be that good. The other way to relieve that tension is to convince ourselves that we're not that bad. All right? We lower that pressure by kidding ourselves about where we really are. I saw one organization that did a benchmarking study, and as they brought their productivity data to the table, every one of them looked at what factors would make their data look better. And so they said, well, the other guy's data isn't quite as good as it seems, and our data isn't quite as bad as it seems. So therefore, there really is no gap. But that doesn't lead to progress. Progress comes when we have tension. And so the leader's job is to really do two things. One, help people have a clear view of current reality. Direct observation is a powerful tool, but sometimes we can't observe for ourselves. As a small example, back when I used to run a factory, I had the opportunity to take people's place. I'd fill in for them, usually just for 5 minutes. But it became a chance first for me to see the work myself, but also for them to see it. For example, I'd have them train me on how to do their job. I'd start to do it nowhere near as fluidly as they had been doing it. They might have been doing it 500 times a day for a couple of years. But watching me, observing me for just 5 minutes, exposed waste in their own process that they weren't able to see themselves. This can happen to leaders at any level, individuals at any level. And so we have to find a way to help expose the blind spots through direct observation. The other part of our job is to create that vision of the ideal state. What does good look like? And that's a fundamental question. What does good look like? As Henry Ford used to say, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have asked for faster buggies, right? Faster horses. But he solved the problem in a different way. He wasn't the first one to invent the automobile, but he had a different vision of what ideal state was. And that wasn't just of a car, that was also of an affordable car. And that idea, that vision started to drive everything that he did. If we would have gone back a couple decades and asked banks what they wanted, or bank customers, they would have said faster lines. Yet how much banking do we do without ever getting in a line at all? Fundamentally, looking at what ideal state looks like creates the opportunity to be creative beyond what we can see today. Once we have that tension, the third ingredient is the first steps of action to close the gaps. We have to make progress. We don't have to have an entire course between where we are and our ideal state, but we want to make progress. Progress is much more important than perfection. We can't build a plan for perfection to get to the ideal state because we're going to run into barriers. There's going to be learning required, maybe innovation, maybe even technology that doesn't exist. But we don't want to let the idea of perfection get in the way of making progress. For example, I may decide that going for a walk is not going to get me anywhere near my target weight or my target health. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. It's a step of progress. And so you take those steps of progress and then you build on it and you build on it because you have a clear vision of what the ideal state looks like. A leader's job is to build tension, and that requires all three of those ingredients. clear view of the current reality, a vision of the ideal state, and action to start to close that gap. Then we've created tension without having to build stress.